Shit. Alright, so I just finished reviewing Disenchantment and Big Mouth. And I'm sitting here thinking, like I always do. And the thought, as it always does, occurs to me that this is exactly what they wanted. This is not uncommon. To see comedians that aren't funny try to tell jokes that they think are funny. We've seen it all the time. If you have been a person who watched cable, like I used to watch cable until I just outright cut it out, you were aware of shows like this, like Broad City and shit like that. You would put something like maybe what was that other fucking show, Workaholics, in there, but Workaholics it at least was actually funny. I actually like the joke process of Adam Devine, and he is at least talented enough to prove that he can both do comedy and drama. So not surprising, not surprising at all. And yet, it's the likes of people like Nick Kroll, somebody who's been doing satire since the 90s for MTV and in general as a comedy writer as a whole, especially with him being super fucking talented. It's weird to watch a person like this debase themselves by making all of their jokes just a vehicle for the woke crowd to latch themselves onto and say that, wow, that's so funny. It's soul crushing. But keep in mind, we've been seeing this happen in entertainment for the longest time. I've written on this many times, right? Exposing the mindset of a person like Zoe Quinn. Exposing the mindset, the inherent lies therein, and the structure and the outright grievance culture that is fueled by a person like Jonathan McIntosh and Anita Sarkeesian. It's not shocking. It's not shocking to see this happen in entertainment forms like comic books. Not hard to see this happen constantly on the internet in forums. People like Reset Era lying about what people are doing just so they can destroy their lives by posting about them aggressively on the internet. Watching watching the likes and the hordes of Twitter try to take life seriously by saying fiction is reality. Shit like that. It's aggressively annoying because we know they're lying. We know they're lying straight through their fucking teeth. But they just can't stop themselves anymore. The lie is easier than just accepting that they have standards that nobody can meet. Can't meet their standards because they have no standards. They change with the blowing wind. That's going to be something I'm covering in the videos that I'm making. I'm going to probably make the video that I'm going to be doing as a two-parter, right? Well, actually, no, I shouldn't. It's probably going to be a one-parter. It's going to be a one-parter that's going to be attached directly to the same thing that I did before, because this is the same shit I saw in Nessa. And ultimately, this is the same shit we see in the cultural rot that is taking us over with the cultural Marxism inside of our hobbies. You cannot make jokes around people like this because nothing's funny enough. It's never woke enough. It's never funny enough. It's always going to be funny enough in hindsight. They'll always say, oh, no, this is a perfect example of how we can do jokes, until that's no longer tenable either. They did it before and they're going to do it again, and they'll keep doing it because they declare themselves the arbiters of what's funny and what's not. And they know what's funny and they know what's not. They also know what is both funny and is also aggressively offensive. And the point is that it's a contradiction. Both are true at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. What would offend you is usually the most important thing to have. What you find detestable in telling stories is usually what makes that story great. It's the thing that they don't like in art. They don't like art to reflect things that could possibly remind them of what they don't like about themselves. So they try to change it to be more like what they think they're like, and then they make the story worse. So instead of just making their own stories to reflect their own individual personalities and their own qualities, like we tell them to, they try to and they see, oh, well, that doesn't sell. So instead, I'm just going to force my ideals onto something that was already pre-existing. And they destroy that, too. It's the word that Micah Curtis used, which was that it's a creator graveyard. And the only way to really undo the graveyard is to become a graveyard keeper. You know, make it your personal job and business to upkeep and uphold the quality of the content that you consume. But ultimately, I don't think that it is. I think as a creator, it is 100% my job to bring something of joy to an industry. But I can't solve the industry if the industry doesn't want to be saved. Honestly, we can try to save it, but I'm not sure if it can be. The rot's gone on for so long, can we actually turn it back? I think we can, with hard work and diligence, but those things are hard for people. It's much easier to push it off on someone else and say, oh, well, they're doing great work. In order to show that you want something, you need to actually support it. We already know that nobody supports their ideals, and they don't like that. So they destroy, and they destroy, and they destroy. They destroy others so that they can forget about how much pain they bring upon themselves. But if that's the life they want to live, that's not going to be a very happy or enjoyable one. They're not going to have a lot of fun. They're not going to really like themselves when it gets down to brass fucking tacks. I, personally, want to do good. I want to bring good. I owe it both to myself and to others. Most importantly, those who support me most of all, and those who have supported me and got me here. To quit now was a betrayal. I said that before. I'll keep saying it, because it's true. I see it as a betrayal. If I can't live my own standard in my own words, what am I actually doing? What am I here for? What am I helping? It's the reason why I make these videos, especially when I'm making this one. Because putting my words to tape and putting it out there to be seen gives you a taste of where my headspace is. And I don't want to stop other people from making jokes, mind you. I don't give a shit. If the point is we're supposed to have humor, I want there to be humor. I want people to have the chance to say what they have to say. The thing I'm aggressively against is silencing people. I don't want to do it. But you do have to understand and remember that thing that people like to say when they quote XCKD. All those people that are telling you that you're a clown, they're not people who are harassing you. They're just showing you the door. You fucking clown. It's something that I find highly, highly interesting. How the people who like to tell others that, no, you're a racist and people are telling you to get lost, are the same people who cannot accept it when an entire group of people who they have been forcing their ideas upon tell them to get fucked. I find it fascinating that they can't accept it. It doesn't shock me that they can't accept it, because they don't like the fact that other people tell them that they're full of shit and that they need to get fucked with that shit. But, you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is, ultimately. They're never gonna not accept it to be true, because the more that they resist it and the more they push it off, the more they can be able to say, well, it's not my fault, it's not my deal, I don't have to deal with it, you all have to deal with it. We all know that's not true. We personally ourselves know it's not true. Because what do we have to be? Well, what are we scared of? What do we have to hide? We don't give a shit. We could not care if they kept calling people pedophiles for liking anime. Because that's what it comes down to. They call you pedophiles for liking aesthetics. They call you pedophiles for liking an art design. Despite the fact that the same people who say this are usually very, very unabashed, unapologetic, and super addicted furries that love themselves some food porn, they're not about to look the gravy horse in the mouth and actually tell the truth. Because they know what happens when they oppose the mob. So they just go along with the mob. Until they become such a loud, brazen part of the mob, they don't even realize that they started bashing people over the head with a broom. Until somebody has to pull their hand back and they realize what they've done. It's always been strange, and always will be strange, to watch people turn on themselves in such a grand light. But what really can you do at the end of the day, when that's all the choice that they're left with? They lost the culture war. Well, they're winning the overall culture war, you know, of infecting everything and tearing it down and razing it to the ground so that they can make money but other people can't. You know, the Jake types. The ones who, they think they're fighting a war and they're taking out the trash when they're really just making more of it. If you want to know about that one, tweet me a little bit. I'll show you some shit. But we're at this point when it comes to creators and creator spaces that you really have to ask yourself, what is the point of going on? when there's just so much crap. It's always going to be important to rail against the machine. Never not going to be important. Never not going to be worthy. Never not going to be a thing that we should do. But there is a time where a person's going to get old and fatigued, and they're going to ask themselves, what do we do when we go from here? What's the point of me having a hobby if my hobby's just going to get infected and changed and turned by these people who never gave a shit in the first place? It's very much like what we see anime YouTubers as. And we know why anime YouTubers have such bad takes, because a lot of them are pushing their ideals on people. They're saying what their personal likes are and how they should have the same standard of opinion as everyone else. It's what I saw from this video the other day that I saw made by, I believe her name was the Sin House. Hold on. Make sure I get this shout out right. The Sin Squad. Why toxic fandoms are so toxic. Saw it from her video. It's the same idea, right? You have a toxic fandom, because that's what a social justice warriors are. They're a toxic fandom of normies that decided and realized that they can make lucrative amounts of money when they can abuse people and get their way pushed and get their projects put forward. They attack a group of people and they tell them that they're monsters so that they can look, in comparison, like gods. Then they get turned on and they get exposed as being the assholes that everybody fucking hates. They can't take it, they can't deal with it, so they push the problem off on other people. They say, no, it's not my problem, it's your problem. Not realizing it's everyone's problem. After pushing it off on so many people and just walking away from the fact that they're responsible for the shit that they do to others, they continue to do this until they rot the industry that they now are sitting inside of to a standstill. Nothing can get made. Nobody can enjoy any art because the art is shit. Trying to tell them this gets you labeled as a misogynist, as an evil person. If you're a woman and you propose these things, well, you're just playing with the wrong side because you're doing it for attention. And so on and so forth. Blase, blase. Fast forward a couple of years forward, and we are where we are now. No more, the money's drying up. You don't have any more journalism money to give you for free because Obama's not in office anymore. Your businesses are closing because you can't get people to be interested in your ideas because you are not people who live your own ideals. You're trying to push against all the people and what they're doing because you're not willing to accept the fact, you're not willing to accept the fact that people were playing Devil May Cry 4 for years before 5 came out. And you turn around and say, actually, DMC was really good. And you can't accept the fact that people like me come out and say, bitch, what the fuck are you talking about? That was literally, they live with a DMC skin. You can't take it. So you try to block us. But then that doesn't work because we also own our own websites. So you lie about us and you slander us and you smear us in the press. And that doesn't work because people can just, see it for themselves. They don't have to take your word for granted. They don't take your word as God anymore. Why would they? You don't have to be trusted. So you get mad and you say, oh, no, don't you remember when it was really good? When we had news aggregators and you had to prove that you could get an audience? And we turn around and tell you, what the fuck are you talking about? Those places were a horrible time. Yeah, there were some creators that we liked, but the majority of those people left those websites as aggregators because it turns out they were getting physically and sexually and emotionally and financially abused. And one of these people, all out of all people, that person tries to come forward with reviews, and they're getting so shitted on their review that a review of their bad review is more popular than their bad review. That's current year. That's creativity in current year. The people who make content, if they're not actually in the shit, if they're not honest off the cuff like Kristen Riviera, Liquid Dominate is, with explaining their niche, which you could say is content creation for a game like League of Legends. If you're not in the shit like him, and you're not literally getting flamed by your goddamn fucking market executive, the owner of the company, who turns around and says, wow, you're just making money off of my fucking game. How dare you look a gift horse in the mouth, you fucking little bitch. If you're not getting bitched out by somebody like that, what actually are you doing? Because that's where the creativity is. That you could call that salty, you could call that toxic, you can call that edgy, but that's truth. He's telling the truth. Like, it is what it is. Because when that shit happened, when Mark Merrill shit talked fucking Dom of all people, it's not even a case of Dom's being an asshole to the owner of Riot. No, that's Dom speaking for some fucking truth. Because Dom knows what it's like. He knows what it's about. He was there. He saw it with his own two eyes. He was in the experience. When Mark Merrill said that shit, he wasn't saying that shit to Dom. He was saying that shit to content creators. That's what social justice warriors have been doing for years. They've become the people who take control of industries and have the audacity, the sheer temerity to turn around and say, how dare you not support my opinion, you ungrateful swine. That's what Crunchyroll's been doing, very loudly, for years now. They started out as an illegal website that was pirating anime, just like everyone else. And they decided, no, let's sell people the privilege to be here. And so they made money on the shit that was supposed to be there to love. And they made it so they could make themselves a legal company and to get the rights properly. And the second they did, they pivoted on their fucking foots and said, how dare you question us, you fucking shills? How dare you steal this wonderful anime you do not deserve? They got a whole bunch of shills to tell you how you need to support them and support the anime industry. And then what did you learn? You learned that they were skimming off the fucking top and that their products were shit. Any person who had been part of the service knew this, but you, without knowing yourself, if you didn't pay the money to see it yourself, did not know. You didn't know that shit until Digibro said it. Surprising, shocking, but is it? Really? Are you surprised? How many times are you gonna play the playbook until people in the audience who don't know figure it out? When it's ashes and it's smoking and it's rubble, and you look up and say, what happened? I thought everything was fine. Perfect example of the voice acting community too. Dallas, Texas is a shithole. I will never move there. Not for pleasure, not for business, not for anything. And yet, there go, it is one of the hubs for voice work. It's one of the hubs for acting, period. That, LA, and New York. Where I live now, I'm close enough to Atlanta that I could use that, and I do. And yet, that doesn't do a dent. Because that attitude's always going to be there. We have to come up with an answer. Something that's tenable, something that's worthy. Because, I don't want to see a man like Victor Joseph Monona get destroyed in his life. Because a bunch of fucking assholes who claimed and called themselves friends would turn around and slander him. And then would go on a long cavalcade, forcing the decision of a judge who doesn't want to do his job to kick the fucking legal can up the road and possibly fuck him up royally because he didn't want to do his fucking job. We'd have no idea what's going to happen in those appeals. And I hope they go well, because if he was to stop now, Vic would be more screwed than ever. And that's kind of what we're at right now. That's the community. That's the creative process. If you're not living in LA and if you're not sucking the right amount of dick and pushing the right political content lines, you're going to get looked at as though you're strange. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't see how that shit's supposed to work. It feels like I'm repeating myself, but it's just how? How is this acceptable, and how did we get here? Those are questions that we're going to be asking ourselves for years. At least for the next 20 years. And I'll still have this conversation again when I'm 45. We have to do something. We need to do something about our creative process here in the US. We need to ask ourselves some real hard-hitting questions. When did we go so wrong that people enjoying out their hobbies became a sin, justifiable and punishable by excommunication from life via cancel culture? How did we get to the point that bullying people into believing that they should finalize their own cancellation became the only way to properly function in a creative circle? I don't know. I don't have the answers. Deliberate and talk about it amongst yourselves below. I'm going to see you guys next time. Mwah. Good night, everybody.